So welcome to the next video of API 577. In the last video we have talked about non-destructive examinations. In this video we'll talk about welding inspections, which is section 9. Now in this section all the general details regarding weld inspection is given. So you just have to read this. It is basically common sense when you think about it, but obviously how we already understand that the weld is to be inspected 3 times. It has to be tested before welding to identify the base metals are correct, if the edge preparation is done as per the requirement, if the electrodes are treated correctly, if the equipment is calibrated. All of those things would be done before welding. During welding we'll check welding parameters such as if the passes are done as per the requirement, what is the travel speed, what is the electrical characteristics, what is the heat requirement, what is the voltage requirement, what is the current requirement. All of these would be during welding. And after welding, obviously we'll do visual inspection and various kinds of non-destructive examination to identify defects. So this is what it is written here. Basically it is going to be very general. Just have to read this once. This section a person should understand, but obviously it is not very complex because very general details are given here. Okay. So welding inspection, general. Welding inspection is a critical part of overall weld quality assurance program. The important issues prior to the welding include review codes, standard specification, design, cleaning procedure, welding procedure and welder qualifications. Task prior to the welding. So these are the tasks that a person should be doing prior to welding operation. First is review the applicable drawings along with the standard code, internal specifications and all welding documentation including WPS, PQR, WPQ in order to understand the requirements of the weldment and identify any inconsistencies. Quality control items to assess. So the items should be reviewed in the drawing. Codes, standards include welding symbol and weld sizes are clearly specified. Weld joint design and dimensions are clearly specified. Dimensions are detailed. Welding consumables are specified. Proper handling of the consumable if any is identified. Base metal requirements, mechanical properties required and required testing are identified on the PQR. Weather protection and windbreak requirements, preheat requirements, post-weld heat treatment requirements, inspection hold points and NDT requirements, additional requirements such as production weld coupons, pressure testing requirements, appropriate and type of non-destructive examination specified, WPS and corresponding PQR for essential, non-essential and where applicable supplementary essential variables. WPQ has been reviewed to ensure that the proper testing was performed to allow the welder to produce a production quality weld. Welding requirements, again some very common data are given here. So review requirements for the welding personnel involved with executing the work such as welding organization and inspection organization. Quality control item to assess. The welding quality control item should be reviewed are as follows. Competency of the welding organization to perform the welding activities in accordance with code, standard and specification. Competency of the inspection organization to perform specific inspection task. Competency of the welding organization to perform welder and welder operator qualifications. Procedure qualification records. Review WPS, review PQR, WPQ for welding process to ensure that they are acceptable to the code specification and are applicable to the work to be performed. Quality control to assess. Welding procedure and qualification record should be reviewed for the following. WPS and PQR, including those developed for making repairs, are properly qualified, meeting the applicable code, standard and specification. WPQ meet the requirement of WPS. Non-destructive examination information. So confirm that non-destructive examiner, NDT procedure, NDT equipment of the inspection organization are acceptable for the work. Items to assess is non-destructive examiners are properly certified, certifications are current, non-destructive examination procedure are current and accurate, calibration of the NDT equipment is current, NDE procedures techniques specified are appropriate and capable of producing specified acceptance and rejections criteria. Heat treatment and pressure testing. Confirm heat treatment and pressure testing procedures and associated equipment are acceptable. Heat treatment and pressure testing procedures should be reviewed by the following. Heat treatment procedure are acceptable and matches the requirements of PQR reviewed and accepted. Pressure testing procedure detailed requirements are reviewed and acceptable. PWST equipment calibrated is current. Pressure testing equipment gauges are calibrated and meet the appropriate test requirements. Materials. Ensure all filler metal, base metal and backing ring Materials are properly marked and identified if required. Ensure completion of the PMI at the point of installation to verify the material composition. Quality control item needs to be assessed is details that should be reviewed on the item used during the welding should be including the following: material test certificate, electrode marking, bare wire flag tags, identification on a spool of wire, filler material marking are traceable and to the filler metal certification. Base metal material marking are traceable to the material certification. Recording of the filler metal base material traceability information is performed. Base material stamping are low stressed and not detrimental to the component. Paint stripping color code is in accordance with the specification and correct to the material used for construction. PMI record supplement the material traceability and confirm the materials for construction. Weld preparation, this is before welding inspection. So confirm the weld preparation, joint fit up and dimensions are appropriate to the relevant design and welding procedure. Items to assess: weld preparation surfaces are free of contaminants, base metal defects such as lamination and cracks. Preheat requirements as per that specified in the WPS. Hydrogen bakeout as specified in the approved procedure. Weld joint is free from oxide, surface scale and hydrocarbon issue. The weld joint type, bevel angle, root face, root opening are as appropriate in the welding procedure. Alignment is acceptable to the project requirements. Piping, socket welds have proper gap. Welding consumables: confirm electrode and filler metal are identified and segregated as required, and the fluxes and inert gases are identified as specified and acceptable. Confirm storage ovens for welding consumables are provided with a visible temperature indication and can operate with the automatic heat control. Items to assess: filler metal type, size as per the procedure. Filler materials are properly handled and stored. Filler materials are clean and free of contaminants. Coating on the coated electrodes is neither damped or damaged. Flux is appropriate for the welding process and properly handled. Inert gas if required are appropriate for shielding and backing. Gas composition is as per the WPS. Shielding gas and purging gas manifolds are periodically bled to prevent backfilling of air. Filler materials are properly identified and alloy and segregated from the welding procedure areas as necessary. Task during welding: welder is responsible for quality and craftsmanship of the weld. Welder has tested and certified to the procedure being used. Welder has received special training and mock-up weldments have been performed if required. Welder and appropriate quality control personnel understand the inspection hold points. Welder is responsible for welding as per the WPS and reference section B. Welding parameters and technique: confirm the welding parameters and techniques are listed in the WPS and WPQ. Quality control item to assess: essential variables are met. Filler material, fluxes, inert gas are as specified in the WPS. Purge gas technique, flow rate, O2 analysis, etc. Equipment settings such as ampere, voltage, fire feed, speed, etc. Filler metal, heat input, supplementary essential variable, preheating during tack weldings, and tack weldings are removed if required. Preheat and interpass temperature. Weld examination, that is after welding is done. Complete physical check, visual examination in process entity. The details to be reviewed are following: tack welds to be incorporated in the weld are tied in the root and free of defects. Root has completely penetrated. Cleaning between the passes and of back gouge surfaces is acceptable and completed as specified on the WPS. Additional entity that may be required between the passes on back gouge surfaces meet the appropriate acceptance criteria. In process rework noted through visual inspection is completed and defect removal is accomplished. In process ferrite measurement if required. Final weld reinforcement and fillet size meets the work specification and drawing. All additional welds are identified as built drawing, weld map to account for the additional details. Task completed upon welding: complete visual examination of the completed welds for obvious defects such as undercut, cold lap, porosity, etc. should be made. So first is visual examination, then size, length, location of the welds conform to the drawings and specification. Temporary attachments and attachments are removed, blended with the base metal, and required entity is completed. Required entity is completed and the discontinuity reviewed against the acceptance criteria. Material verification completion, PMI conducted on the weld metal, base metal, fitting, valve components during prefabrication and at the point of installation required by the specification. Welder stamp and marking, field hardness check is performed. NDT review: so what you should be doing while performing NDT. So these are to be reviewed. Obviously some additional data can also be there, but this should be reviewed. Specified location for examination, specified number of examinations completed, NDT performed after final post-weld heat treatment, representation of the work of each welder is included in the random examination techniques as specified in the construction code or standard. Radiographic quality is in accordance with the requirement listed in ASME section 5 article 2. Document that all the non-destructive examination and associated tables have been correctly executed and documented. Check the joints for delayed cracking for thick sections, especially highly constrained joints, joints of high strength material, and the surfaces having a potential for delayed cracking. Post-weld heat treatment. Details are to be reviewed during post-weld heat treatment. Before post-weld heat treatment begins, paint, marking and other detrimental contaminants removed, temporary attachments removed, machine surfaces protected from the oxidation, equipment internals such as valve internals removed to prevent damage, equipment adequately supported to prevent distortion, thermocouples fastened properly, thermocouples adequately monitor the temperature zones, temperature monitoring system calibrated, local heating bandwidth is adequate, insulation is applied to component where the required for local heating. After post-weld heat treatment, the temperature and the hold time as per the PWST procedure, heating rate and cooling rate as per post-weld heat treatment procedure, and hardness indicates are acceptable as preheating, acceptable to preheating. Pressure testing meet the specification, test duration as specified, metal temperature components meet the minimum and maximum requirements, pressure drop or decay is acceptable as per the procedure, visual examination does not reveal any kind of leakage or material defects. All welds and the components are accessible for visual examination, are not covered with paint, insulation or other matter. Document audit, items to be assessed, all verification in the quality plan are properly executed, inspection reports are completed, accepted, signed by the responsible parties. Inspection reports, NDE examiner interpretation and findings are accurate. All document is retained as required by the referencing code or company specifications. Non-conformances and defects. Defects should be completely removed and re-inspected following the task outlined in this section until the weld is found as acceptable. So any defect that is found shall be removed, repaired, rechecked. Until that defect is removed, it would not be accepted. Repair welds. When the inspection identifies a rejectable defect, the inspector should mark the area for repair, remove the defect, verify the defect removal usually by using PTMT, and all necessary repair welding is performed. NDT certification examination. So the examiner should have some sign of certification. The referencing code or standard may require the examiner to be qualified in accordance with the specific code and certification meeting the requirements. Typically, a weld construction standard such as ASME for pressure vessel or piping, API 510 for in-service pressure vessel examination, 570 for in-service piping examination refers to certification and qualifications such as ASNT, SNT, TC1A and CP189. Nowadays, ISO 9712 is also specified, which is a third-party inspection program, or ASNT Central Certification Program, that is ACCP, which is nowadays ASNT 9712 is also used. Although a company's written practice may be allow the employer to appoint a level 3, the owner user may prefer that at least for initial certification a level 3 examiner may be certified by examination. Owner user qualification, candidate requirement term approval, weld inspection and data monitoring. So these are some additional data that is given. So inspector would review all of these things are as per the requirements or not. If not, then your weld is not as per the specification. If all of these data reviewed is good, then you'll generally have a better quality of weldment at the end of the cycle. So these are some tables that are given here. So when reporting the results of the inspection, it is important to use a standard terminology. Examples of standard terminologies are written here. So these are some examples written here. Results of non-destructive examination, results of acceptance and rejection criteria. Okay. So this was how to do weld inspection. What are some documents you need to review? What are some documents to review during post-well heat treatment, what are some documents to be reviewed during non-destructive examination, what are some documents to review if your non-destructive examination reveals any kind of failure, is listed in section 9 of APFI 77. In the next video we'll go for section 10, which is basically the metallurgy of welding, where what is the structure of metal, what is weldability, what is hardness. We'll talk about all of these things. Okay, this was all for this video. Let's meet in the next video.